John Paul Lederach has done pioneering work in conflict resolution and reconciliation around the world for decades. He has done it in some of the hottest hotspots with the drug cartels in Colombia, with warring factions of terrorism in Nepal. He's done it, same thing in the Philippines, and in several countries, both in East and West Africa. He's a prolific author. He's written 22 books. One of them is called When Blood and Bones Cry Out, Through a Landscape of Healing and Reconciliation. Another one called Building Peace, Sustainable Reconciliation in a Divided Society. He also wrote one called Reconciliation. And I read this one and I preached about it in a homily when I was up at St. Monica. By the way, we've got a couple of members from St. Monica in the house. Bridget, Mary, wave your hand. They wanted to check this place out. They heard there's going to be a party on March 5. I'm like, wait, before we go down there, we want to make sure that it's really as good as you say it is. I saw them before Mass. They said, remember we said? No, it's better. So, anyway, he is a professor at the Hesburgh Center of International Studies at, wait for it, Notre Dame. And he wrote I'll call it a poetic fable years ago that has really become a landmark and in some ways a guide to what he does when he goes into these reconciliation hotspots. And it's a conversation between 4 children named Mercy, Peace, Justice, and Truth. I'd like to read it to you. Truth said, I am the light, cast so all may see. I am concerned with bringing forward out in the open what really happened. I have handmaidens. They are transparency, honesty, and clarity. Now, some may ask, Truth, why are you so hard to find? Because I can only appear where the search is done by people who are genuine and sincere. Truth also needs time and space to emerge. But truth also knows that her light can bring clarity, but also blind and burn. It can bring clarity, but not to people who will use truth arrogantly as a club to hit others with humiliation and agony because of their imperfections and their weaknesses. This is why truth fears mercy most of all. Mercy wants to respect other voices, but in his haste to heal, Brother Mercy covers up my light and clouds my clarity. So Mercy spoke up and said, I am Mercy. I bring forward the eternal grace of new beginnings. Because I know the frailty of the human condition. All are flawed as children of Adam and Eve. And so I am concerned about people and the relationships between them. My handmaidens are acceptance and compassion and support. Forgiveness is the child that is born to provide healing. But forgiveness can only be born when both truth and mercy come together. But Mercy fears something. Mercy fears justice. In his haste to make things right, Justice forgets that the roots lie in real people and damaged human relationships. Justice stood and spoke. Mercy is correct. I seek to set things right, because at the root of the many conflicts are inequality, greed, iniquity, hatred, and sin. So I ensure that something is done to restore the damage and heal the wounds, especially to the victims and the downtrodden. However, justice can be handed out with a sense of cruelty and harshness. Healing relationships are characterized by honest accounting, but always together with steadfast love. Love without accountability is just a word. Love with accountability is reconciliation and restoration, changed behaviors, and new actions. Yes, Justice said, I fear peace because peace always places herself as bigger and greater than all three of us. And Justice turned towards peace and said, you follow us. You do not precede us. Peace smiled and said, yes, I am peace. I am the child born of truth and justice and mercy. However, I am also the mother who labors to give them life. And peace is the spouse that accompanies them on the way. I hold the community together with encouragement and security and hope, respect, and assurance of safety. Without me, there is no space for truth to be heard. Without peace, justice is just a vicious cycle of accusation, judgment, bitterness, and bloodshed. Thus, I am before and after. I am not a destination to be reached. I am the journey and the way. And what does peace fear? Not who, but what and when. Peace said, I fear when any of my brothers and sisters are sacrificed for the sake of the other. But when the four of us journey together, we come to a place, and that place, all four children responded, is reconciliation. So what are we to do, O Church of Jesus Christ? When I looked at the tape, I checked my emotions. The wise women of St. Raymond who recommended that I look at it, they said, be prepared. And I looked at it, and the first emotion that came up was something that the girls that I used to teach at Goretti talked about. It was called the creepy factor. It was just like, ew, it's creepy. And then something else came out, and it was, there's something deeper here. It's diabolical. It's evil. But then I recall watching a report on this, and it was on CNN, and it was a panel of four people. There were three women, and there was one guy, and the guy was African American. And they turned to him first. So what do you think? And he said, all right, let me just get this out first. Teenagers do dumb things. I was a teenager. I do dumb things. But this is beyond just a dumb thing. And what struck me was I went back to the girls at Goretti. And South Philly is a wonderful place. I had 3 great years teaching at Goretti, later Goretti Newman, and living at St. Monica. And I also know that South Philly has a dark side. And I knew some of the girls who had went through some really tough times. And they pressed that stuff, that darkness down. And when looking at the girls in the video, I said, you know, there's something there, really, really dark, way, way down. And sure, they will be chastised, they'll probably be expelled, and there will be all kind of cries about what are we supposed to do, and let's have councils, and that all of that is good. But we're about something else, something much, much deeper. We're about what a friend of mine once said is the idea that what you do not transform, you transfer. There's something in these 4 girls that has not been redeemed. There's something hurting, or they've been hurt. So they're just passing it on to others. So what are we to do? Because we're not an NGO and we're not a social agency. We're the Church of Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ takes gross, creepy, ugly, evil stuff and he turns it inside out. He doesn't dismiss it. He redeems it. And the fact of the matter is, if we ask, well, what are we to do? The answer is, there's nothing we can do. We don't have the power to do something about that. And so, as I've said before, our posture should be to come to church and get on the floor, our face to the ground, our hands out, and saying, Lord, there but for the grace of God go I. And if I look deep in my heart and my soul, there is that same darkness there. And I can't fix this. But you can fix this. You need to come down and first heal my heart and my soul. And then heal the hearts and souls of others. And I think that's why St. Raymond plays such an important role in this issue. We're not about the program. We're about something that they said in the Old Testament was called the Shekinah, the glory of, the glory of God. It was the cloud that surrounded the meeting tent for the Israelites when they were going through the dark place, through the desert. And Moses would go into the Shekinah, into the cloud, and when he came out, his face was radiant and changed. And that's what St. Raymond's needs to be. We need a place where people come in and they sit. I was talking to Sister before, and she said, this is the total experience here. And I think that's what we do here. It's about the worship and the music and the fellowship and the quality of the reading and the best homilies in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Well, maybe the second. Where people can come in here and they can just sit and soak and cry and lament and weep. But it's also a place where people are safe and people feel loved. Because when people feel safe and they feel loved, then the healing can begin. I asked at the Mass yesterday and the Mass this morning, I said, look, give me some feedback on the homily. Do I need to change things, adjust things? And somebody came back and they said, your homily was fine. But wouldn't it be something if we invited those 4 girls here? I wouldn't have a problem with the invitation, but the fact of the matter is, would they feel safe? 4 white girls coming into an all-black church. What would they feel as they came in through the door? Would they feel loved? And I say that's the challenge. But there are things that we do, and there are other things that are going on that I think build up and infuse that Shekinah. A couple of years ago, it was when Black Lives Matter was really getting some traction. And there was a student at Radnor High School. Radnor, if you take the Blue Route up towards Villanova, that's where Radnor is. And the student wanted to do a peace parade from Radnor to Paoli. It's over 10 miles. And you knew at that time there were peaceful protests around the country. And we all remember there were places where there were not peaceful protests. And Route 30 is a major thoroughfare, and there are churches, and there are homes, and there are businesses, and people were scared. And I remember that day, I was driving, and I had to get St. Monica's the south side of Route 30, Lancaster Avenue. I had to get to the north side, and I drove up to the light, and the parade was going through, and I thought, oh my goodness, how long is this going to last? It was halfway through the parade. It was like 30 minutes. Hundreds of young children, younger kids, teenagers, moms with strollers, one after another, after another, after another, smiling, happy, jostling each other like teenagers do. I could not help but say, this is not just impressive, this is amazing. This is sacred. Tony Reeves is going to be doing a retreat in a couple of weeks called Break Every Chain, A Road to Racial Healing. She's going to be doing it with the Office for Black Catholics and a Religious Order of Sisters up in Huntington Valley. That's adding to the cloud of witnesses. The libation rite that we'll soon do comes from our culture and talks about the past and the present and the future, and it wraps it all up in prayer and hope, and it gives it to God and said, God, here, we are a hot mess, here it is, here's what it is, you take it, you need to change it, that's your job. You are God. I remember the people from St. Monica. I preached about that book called Reconciliation in my homily. And they came to me and said, they didn't know what to do. And they said, let's get the book, let's read it, and at least that's the first step. And so we bought a couple cases. I went and put them out the next weekend. They were going like that. And person after person came to me deeply moved by what the professor had written. Something else that maybe we could do as a homework assignment. If you took a Myers-Briggs test on the 4 children, on truth and mercy and justice and peace, each one of us are going to gravitate towards one that we like, that it's our strength. I'm a truth guy, maybe with a sub-1 of justice. What was having my hair on fire this whole weekend when all they talked about this were the Catholic girls at the Catholic school, and there was other kids over here in the public schools as well. It drove me nuts. I'm like, okay, go ahead, take another shot. I wanted to see some truth and justice. I have been blessed at all of my assignments with people who are mercy and peace. And they say things like this, I'll say we should do this, and they'll go, well, Father, yeah, you can do that. But how about this? And I have to go sit in sackcloth and ashes and find my confessor and go to confession. So what is the thing, which of the 4 do you gravitate? Are you a truth person, a mercy person, a justice person, and a peace person? Celebrate that. But realize that's not only your strength, that's your weakness. Which of the true do you need God to help and work on? Truth, mercy, justice, peace? Which is the one where you're saying, Lord, I can't do that. I struggle with that. I can't, but you can. And we continue to come back here because this is a place where we are trying to go on the journey, holding hands with peace and mercy and justice and truth together. And only when we are healed can we go out and heal others. But there is something that I was thinking, and I'm thinking was, is there no better place where that can happen? Is there no better focal point that would make sense for that healing to begin to take place than St. Raymond? Amen?